So we're actually going to start with a little review of object pronouns. This goes back to something that we learned last trimester, and we reviewed it a little bit in the first half of this trimester as well. So we learned about something called direct object pronouns. And object pronouns are words that replace a noun. They replace the noun that is the object of the sentence. And remember, we said that an object of the sentence doesn't necessarily have to be an object. It can be a person, but it's whoever or whatever the action happens to. And so we learned 3 direct object pronouns. They are le, la, les. So take a second and think about what those 3 words mean. Le has 2 different meanings. It can mean it or him. La also has 2 meanings, it or her. And the word les means them, referring to either things or people. Now, we had a rule and we had an exception as far as where as these go in a sentence. In class, if we were doing this, I would tell you object pronouns go. And the answer is before the conjugated verb. Now, our exception to that is except if there is an infinitive. If there's an infinitive, they are placed before that infinitive instead of before the conjugated verb. Okay, so this is just a review of stuff that you guys already know, and we're going to do one quick practice to make sure that you remember how to do this, because it's been a little bit since we've practiced with this concept. So answer these questions using an object pronoun. Remember that step 1 of that process. What was step 1? Step 1 is understand what you're reading. If you don't understand the question, you're not going to be able to answer it correctly because you don't know what you're trying to put together. And probably more importantly, if you don't understand the question, what are you even going to be putting together? It's not going to make sense. Okay, so remember, step 1 is understand the question. Step 2 is think about what part of this are we going to eliminate. And when we did this, we've actually practiced by crossing out the part that could be replaced by an object pronoun. So our step 1 is figuring out that tu aimes les oranges is asking, do you like oranges? The next part is, well, which part of that can we replace with an object pronoun? The object is whatever comes right after the verb. In this case, it's oranges, but it's not just the word orange, it's les oranges, the whole phrase. After that, our next step is figuring out which pronoun are we going to use. So we have 3 choices, le, la, or les. So since orange is plural, obviously we're going to use les. And then we have to figure out where that les is going to go in our answer. It's not going to stay in the same order. Object pronouns go before the conjugated verb, which means that my les is going to go here before am, because that is, am is my conjugated verb. Okay, so when we put this all together, then I get oui, je les aime. Yes, I like them. Or the negative, non, je ne les aime pas. No, I don't like them. Okay, so either way, the les is right before m. Remember, when we have a negative, the ne needs to go before the pronoun. Now, what I want you to do is go through these other 2 questions and go through the process again. What is the question asking? What part can I get rid of? Cross it out. Which pronoun am I going to use? Write it above. Where is it going to go? Draw the arrow. And then how do I put the whole answer together? So, il a choisi ce melon. Did he choose that melon? We get rid of ce melon. It's masculine singular, so we replace it with le. Le goes before the conjugated verb. Now, this is the tricky one. We have passé composé here. Remember, in passé composé, the form of avoir is our conjugated verb. So our answer is oui, il l'a choisi. Yes, he chose it. If we make that negative, non, il ne l'a pas choisi. No, he didn't choose it. So that's our answer for that one. Now our third question, vous voulez finir mes légumes? Do you want to finish my vegetables? The object here is mes légumes, so we're going to take that out. It's plural, so we're going to replace it with les, just like the first one. Here we also have two verbs, but finir is an infinitive, so that means our les is going to go before finir. Now keep in mind for this one, just like how we changed tu aimes to j'aime up here, vous voulez means do you want. That's not what you would use in your answer. Think about how you would answer the question as well. You would say either I want or we want to finish them. So if we assume that vous voulez is the plural you, do you guys want to finish my vegetables? Then we would answer nous voulons les finir. Yes, we want to finish them. If the vous was like a formal you for some reason, then your answer could be je veux les finir. I want to finish them. Let's say that we don't want to finish somebody else's vegetables. So then the negative is going to be nous ne voulons pas les finir. Ne pas still goes around voulons because that's our conjugated verb. But les, the object pronoun, needs to go in front of our infinitive. Okay, so remember this rule that we had practiced before. Object pronouns go before the conjugated verb, except when there's an infinitive, they go before the infinitive. Okay, so that's what we already know about object pronouns. We're going to take that information and we are going to apply it to a new object pronoun. There's another object pronoun that I want you guys to know about, and it is called on. So another object pronoun we're going to learn about is on. Now, on is a little bit trickier because it doesn't have one exact translation. So it's not really any harder to use, but it is just maybe a little bit more complicated in understanding when to use it. So one of the instances in which we're going to use on is we use it to replace a noun that is introduced with de or any form of de. So different forms of de that you've seen before are du, de la, des, and de l'apostrophe. So we see these as articles with some of our food items like du raisin, du maïs, des myrtilles, des carottes, okay? And we're going to talk more about these in the next part of this unit as well. Essentially, all of these phrases mean some if we see them before a food item. So, on is used to replace a noun that's introduced by de or any form of de as well. Remember that du is really just a combination of de and le. Des is just a combination of de and les. Now this is the tricky part because we had said before that, okay, well, le means him or it, la means her or it, les means them. On does not have one exact translation. It has multiple different equivalents in English. So in English, this translates as some, or of it, or of them, or any in a negative sentence. So let's look at some examples. We're going to go one at a time. First example, vous voulez du raisin? Do you want some grapes? Oui, nous en voulons. Yes, we want some. Non, nous n'en voulons pas. We would translate it as no, we don't want any. In this case, the en means any. Il a acheté des épinards. Did he buy some spinach? Oui, il en a acheté. Yes, he bought some. Non, il n'en a pas acheté. No, he didn't buy any. And numéro 3, tu manges beaucoup de fruits? Do you eat a lot of fruits? Oui, j'en mange beaucoup. Yes, I eat a lot of them. Non, je n'en mange pas. No, I don't eat any. Now, notice whether or not we keep the beaucoup here kind of changes the meaning. If we pretend that beaucoup doesn't exist, our sentence just ends here after pas. Non, je n'en mange pas would translate as no, I don't eat any. If we keep the beaucoup in the sentence and we have non, je n'en mange pas beaucoup, then that sentence means no, I don't eat a lot of them. So the on kind of changes what we would say in English, just according to how the sentence is put together. Notice in each of those cases, what the on is replacing is some phrase that starts with a form of de. So du raisin, des épinards, de fruits. So that's one way that we use this object pronoun on. However, there is another way that we use it as well. On is also used to replace an object that is introduced by a number. So here's an example of that. Ils ont acheté un ananas. Did they buy a pineapple or one pineapple? Remember, a and one are the same thing in French. When we do this, we're going to say, oui, ils en ont acheté un. Yes, they bought one of them, meaning kind of like of all of the pineapples in the world, they bought one. Or the negative, non, ils n'en ont pas acheté. No, they didn't buy any. Notice in a negative sentence, it translates to any pretty much all of the time. Elle va manger 2 pommes. Is she going to eat 2 apples? So notice that we're not actually replacing the number necessarily. We're just replacing the word that comes after it. And we have a couple different ways that we could answer this question. So is she going to eat 2 apples? Oui, elle va en manger 2 would mean yes, she is going to eat 2 of them, meaning of like all of the apples. Or we could say, non, elle va en manger une. No, she is going to eat 1 of them. So of all of the apples, she's only going to eat 1. Or we could say, non, elle ne va pas en manger. No, she is not going to eat any. Okay, so there's more than just a positive and a negative answer for many of these questions. There are different ways that you can put it together. So depending on what we want to say, those are different examples. Now, when we have a phrase that is introduced by a number like un or deux, or like a quantity expression like beaucoup we had up here, numbers and quantity expressions aren't replaced. We're not getting rid of that part, but they go after the verb. They're going to stay right after the verb. In a negative sentence, however, that number or quantity might not be necessary. So that's where we talked about how we could have the beaucoup at the end of the sentence, but we don't maybe have to have it. It's just going to change the meaning. And here where we're saying, no, they're not buying 1 pineapple, we don't need to say 1. If they're not buying, they're not getting any. So we don't need the un here. We don't need the de here. We don't need to say, no, she is not going to eat 2 of them. If she's not going to eat any, we can just say, no, she's not going to eat any. So in a negative sentence, we probably don't need that number or quantity. Now, this is the part that you guys already know. Yay, we know something. Just like other object pronouns, on is placed before the conjugated verb, except if there is an infinitive, it is placed before the infinitive. So notice in all of these examples, where the on is located follows the same rule as you've learned before in terms of its location. It's just that on replaces a phrase beginning with de or a phrase that's introduced by a number. That's what makes it different from le, la, and les. Okay, so first little practice exercise, activité A. It says underline the expression that will be replaced by on. What I would actually encourage you to do instead of underlining, I would suggest that you cross it out. Okay, so cross out the phrase that's going to be replaced by on, and then go through that process. Before you get to that part, actually, remember step 1, understand the question, then figure out which part is going to be replaced, cross it out, write the word on above it, draw the little arrow for where does your on need to go, then put together a positive answer for each of those. So go through the steps, but everything in this activity is using on rather than le, la, les.